Best of r/malicious compliance episode 69. Subscribe for edit videos daily. Not my story but my ex's. Back in 2007 my ex-boyfriend was a DJ in a vacation spot and he'd constantly get requests for the line dance type songs. If you were anywhere near the DJ booth all you would hear would be Cupid Shuffle and Cha-Cha Slide etc being shouted over the booth wall. It was relentless. There are only so many times these songs can be reasonably played in a given night, so he would spread them out. After a while of being bombarded with requests, and requesters getting irate he would finally play one, only instead of the regular 4-minute version, he would play the 12-minute version. In the beginning the dance floor would be packed and everyone would be dancing and loving life. Around 6 minutes in some people would start leaving the dance floor. 8 minutes and there would be some looks of confusion after they realized it was going on much longer than normal. 11 minutes and they'd be hurling abuse at him to turn it off. Thank you, next. So I wasn't sure if this was malicious compliance and I posted it and it led people but someone said this would be great here. So here it is. Also thank you to r/ on YouTube for making me realize I had so many stories to share. Here's my story. When I was 15 I got my first paid job working for the fair. It was a pretty big fair that traveled across Canada and along the east coast of the US ending in Florida for Christmas. If you've ever been to the PNE, Pacific National Exhibition, CNE, Canadian National Exhibition, Red River X, Calgary Stampede and whatever they call it in Edmonton and Regina, that's the one. I loved the summer job because it was short, only a week as I did not travel, and gave me enough cash to get through the summer. I worked for the privately owned donut vendor which tasted better and paid better than the show donut vendors. Fast forward 4 years when I decided to travel with the show. I was 19 and it was easier to travel at this point cause I could sign my own forms, and being 19 I needed more money for school and the like. We start in my home city and make our way across the country visiting city after city. We were in Edmonton when our story really begins. Now the travel crew is pretty small and we hire our bagging/cashier locally. I, along with senior crew members, are in charge of training the baggers, re-oiling the machines, switching out the dough canisters and making sure they are running and putting out donuts in a consistent manner. As I am checking dough levels and teaching a bagger how to efficiently fill bags for the evening rush I hear a commotion behind me. Entitled Woman. Karen, no, I want the fresh ones. Bagger, Mom these are fresh, I just made them. Karen, no, I want them to be fresh. Make me new ones, I didn't see you make those, they could be old. It was 9 in the morning. At this point in the day, most donuts are made to order so those donuts wouldn't have been older than 5 minutes. The bagger calls me to turn on his machine to start the donuts. These machines are so temperamental and really old because the owner built them himself many moons ago. But I love them cause they make perfect donuts that travel in a circular conveyor belt in 400-degree oil. They're a lot of fun to watch. I start the machine and scoop out the first few rejects and make 15 donuts. The donuts fall off the belt into the glass case and the bagger slots them into the sugar and into a bag. He hands them to her and she dramatically sighs. Karen, ooh, no, I want the fresh ones and those have touched the old ones. How do I know you didn't mix them up? I don't believe they're fresh. I want fresh donuts. Bagger, Mom those are fresh. I made sure to pick only the new ones out. Again she huffs and puffs, so I fire up the machine again, scoop out the rejects and make 15 donuts. This time I grab the new bag and place the bag right under the chute so the donuts have no choice but to fall into the bag. They do. I hand it to the bagger and walk away just to have to turn around again. Karen, no I want the ones directly out of the oil, that way I know they're fresh. Those ones have cooled down and are not fresh anymore. Me, sorry Mom but that is against the policy, the oil is 400 degrees, and besides, they're not done cooking. Karen, I want the fresh ones. Get me your supervisor. My supervisor is off doing supervisor things, and I don't feel like calling her. She's also a lifer and doesn't take flack from anyone and I know if I call her, and she's busy, this woman will leave crying. So to avoid this and say, I am the supervisor on duty right now and the policy states we can't give you donuts from the oil. There is no policy but it's common fucking sense. Karen, I have been a patron of this company for so many plus years. I have never been denied a fresh donut. This is so unprofessional. I want to talk to the owner right now. At this point, I'm on day 5 of this show and we work an hour before open to an hour after the close depending on the show and after some new laws, roughly 16 hours daily. I'm tired of her and in general. That's when I get a brilliant idea. I smile. Me, there is no need for that. I will get you your fresh donuts. I start up the machine again and discard the rejects. I then grab a bag and let the donuts plop into the oil for half a second and scoop them out immediately. Not long enough to get hot, but also not long enough to hold a shape. I then take the bag of dough and sprinkle in some cinnamon sugar and say as sugary as I can muster, here you go. Sorry for the inconvenience. Enjoy the rest of your day. She smiles smugly, having thought she got her way. About 10 paces later she stuck her hand into the bag and I hear a squeal, a snarl and then swearing. That's when Greg, not his real name, one of the senior machine guys, returned from his break. Greg was a fucking legend when it comes to dealing with Karens. He makes it a hobby to seek them out for fun on his breaks so he can tear into them. He once told a heavy customer in a scooter he would not sell her 50 bags of donuts because he didn't want to be responsible for her coronary and could not have that on his heart, and that she should take her business to the other donut stall. He can be quite savage. I don't condone his behavior and sometimes he scares me, but this is also why I like working under him, because it means Karens never get away with their shit. The women came storming back and demanded a refund and demanded I be fired. He asked why and she screamed, "That bitch sold me a bag of dough." Greg asked me if that was true. I smiled sheepishly and said yes and explained she did not want the fresh donuts off the belt, she wanted the fresh donuts from the oil and would not leave till I gave them to her. Greg turned to her and said, "Sorry for that, but we don't issue refunds to dumbasses, so take your fresh donuts and leave before I start pelting you with these donuts. You have 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3. She tried to huff and puff, at which point he took the bag of donuts she did not want and began pelting her with them. After she left he told me he was proud of me and would let the boss know. I got an extra $100 in my per diem for that week. Thank you." Next. I was recommended to post this story here by a friend who had me retell the story during a nightly gaming session. For those with better things to do, I don't blame you. A TL. Doctor is at the bottom. Let's set the stage. This story takes place a little while ago. I was a young university student, 24M, dating a beautiful girl, Hannah, 23F, who I believed I would be marrying in the next year or two. While Hannah and I didn't meet under the best circumstances, our relationship kicked off and was passionate nonetheless. We seemed to get along just fine. We spent most of the time in Hannah's apartment, not far from campus, where I'd spend the night since I was commuting to school. This story takes place about 16 months into our relationship. Before I go on, I should mention that both Hannah and I had some rough relationship troubles prior to meeting one another. She was seeking help for her mental health but stopped 6 months into our relationship. Mental health issues that culminated in her cheating on her previous partner. I was no angel either. A medical scare 3 years prior put me in a depressive state that also led me down a similar path. However, after some major life changes I found myself dedicated to my future career and to my relationship. Hannah and I were very open about our past, and talked very often whenever there were issues. Or so I thought. But this story isn't about a happy couple, and you, my dear editor, are here to read about spite and malicious compliance. Cut to the fateful night. I'm cuddling Hannah in her bed after she experienced an emotional scare, when she begins a discussion about exes and boundaries, relating to her ex texting her that evening. We discuss people propositioning others in relationships, leading to me admitting to Hannah that one of my co-workers was interested in me but I turned them down early in our relationship. Hannah flips, asks why I never told her sooner, demands to see my phone, attempts to extract messages from it, and then tells me to go home. In her mind, me not telling her meant that I had led my co-worker on. Spoiler alert, I didn't. Kicked out of her place, I slink home wondering what I did wrong. Hannah doesn't want to talk that night, and the following day she tells me she's not ready to talk either. She only tells me she's taking the week to herself to think this over and that I shouldn't text her. I'm compliant. I wait. Despite an awful week involving a family member's emergency surgery followed by a major exam, I refrained from texting her. It's what she wanted after all. 6 days later, and she asks to meet at a coffee shop halfway across the city. Cool, I'm compliant, so I make my way down. She shows up. So do 4 of her friends. They all sit down, and the first words out of Hannah's mouth are, "So how many other women are there?" She believes I've been cheating. She believes I've been flirting with women behind her back, and that I somehow had a long list of concubines, all because I refused to sleep with a coworker and brushed it off over 12 months ago. I made the mistake of trying to defend myself, which only made her more angry at me, and resulting in her friends telling me to get lost and never come back. My last words to her were, "If you're serious, I'll go. But the minute I walk out that door, don't expect me to come back." They were met with a final, "You should leave," by her and her friends. I go to the hospital, visit my relatives, come home, game with friends, and go to bed. The next morning I wake up to a text from Hannah. It reads, "We're done. I'm hurt, and can't really make heads or tails of what just happened, but I know I need to respect her decision. I'm also just a little angry that she believed I cheated on her, despite my dedication to the relationship." Now, dear reader, if you made it this far, then in the wise words of Anakin Skywalker, this is where the fun begins. Later that night I receive a text from her friend. It's long-winded, asking me about my side of the story and what happened. Obviously Hannah ran to them to say what happened and this friend was trying to mend burned bridges. I don't reply. I was told to get lost. I am compliant, and I respect her decision. We're done. I block her friend. The following morning I receive a text from her mom, explaining that this was all a big misunderstanding and that Hannah wants to talk it through and that I should come over. I reply saying that I'm helping my family member recovering from surgery, and not to text me again. I am compliant, and I respect Hannah's decision. A few hours later, I receive a message from her sister, asking what happened since Hannah has been distraught and crying all day. She begs me to call and talk to Hannah, who is begging to clear up this misunderstanding. I ignore and block her. I am compliant, and I respect Hannah's decision. The next message comes from her mom again. Hannah had stolen her phone, and sent a long message about how I'm ghosting her by not replying. I block that number too. I'm not ghosting, I'm being compliant. She said get lost, and so I did. The following day her friends repeatedly try to call me. Each one is ignored and blocked. Finally, I get a text from a number I don't recognize. It's Hannah, from a burner phone, telling me how this was a misunderstanding. She doesn't apologize, but does state that this ghosting is childish. I block that number too. I'm compliant and respectful, and since she said we're done, we're done. I want to say that this story ends here, but it doesn't. A month passes with no contact from Hannah at all, until I log into Reddit and see a message from a brand new account. The message is from Hannah, who goes into detail about how my ghosting has resulted in multiple mental breakdowns resulting in her hospitalization, and that my family and friends are idiots for supporting me. She demands that I reply instantly and that I help her through this, because that's what good couples do. I don't reply. I simply block and ignore. I'm compliant, and I respect her decision. This time, however, Hannah won't stand for it. I wake up the next morning to my Reddit account deleted. During the night, Hannah had deciphered my password. I had used her Wi-Fi at her apartment and I remember logging in once on her laptop, and deleted my account. Being a dumb university student, this required me to change all my passwords and logins as I was silly enough to keep them all the same. What followed was a call to a lawyer and her family. Honorable mention at this time to Reddit admin, who followed up by reinstating my account, minus prior messages and chats. Her dad answered the phone. He explained to me that, as before, our argument was all a misunderstanding and that we can patch things up if I just talk to her. I tell him that she broke up with me, to which he's surprised. I take it she never told him the full story, and told him that my accounts had been hacked by somebody at her IP address. I tell him that if she contacts me again, I will be involving a lawyer and the police. I hang up after that, not giving him a chance to reply. If you've kept reading until now, dear editor, Then I'm sorry to say there's no climactic ending to this story. I didn't hear from Hannah again afterwards. As far as I know, she's dating someone new who ironically looks exactly like me, and who I hope won't have to deal with this either. As for myself, I dedicated my time to furthering my education, and in doing so met someone who treats me with the love and care I believe I deserve. I have some inkling that at some point Hannah might try to message me again. Throughout our relationship she was notorious for texting exes to try and discuss how their relationship went. But for now, I sleep soundly knowing I was a good boyfriend who did exactly what she said. I was compliant, and I respected Hannah's decision. I got lost, and never came back. TL. Doctor, girlfriend of 16 months believes I cheated, assembles a group of friends to confront me, and then tells me to get lost. To her surprise, I agree, and respect her decision by ignoring the numerous attempts she makes to rectify this misunderstanding, which includes hacking my Reddit account and me contacting a lawyer. Thank you. Next. For privacy reasons I'm being vague. This didn't happen to me but I did witness it. Background. For the last 5 years I have worked in a rural office of a large organization, org, in Outback Australia. I work 4 hours away from the main building. Org receive various amounts of government funding for lots of community programs. As such, org has a main building, several hubs in the same town and a few hub offices in different towns, like my office, not part of this story. Org has a volume of maintenance and security concerns which they contract out to security and maintenance company, which I will refer to security company. The contract between Security Co and org is very clear regarding expectations of both companies, costs outlined and burden of costs relating to oversights, important for later. The contract is renegotiated every 3 years and is profitable for Security Co if all goes well. Security Co was in charge of maintenance and security for main office and all offices within 20 kilometers of the main office. I have a few friends across the org and we meet up for drinks when I'm required to work in main office, which is about 2-3 times a year. During my first visit to the main office on 2018, as usual, I met with a few friends: Aaron, account department, Kevin, contract department, and John, manager of a hub. For the story I need to explain John manages a hub that is required to be staffed 24/7, 8 workers a shift, 3 shifts a day. Hub is located as a shitty part of town known for violence, drugs and theft. As such, workers require security present during shift change to make sure workers get to / from the cars without issue. It's company policy as workers have been mugged in the past. Over a few drinks John told us that Security Co appointed a new manager that oversees security for the hubs. I will call him Butthole. Butthole was hired after his predecessor retired. Management and Security Co receive a bonus each year if their department runs at a profit. Before Butthole, security ran smoothly and turned small bonus for manager, wanting a bigger bonus. Butthole decided to reduce his department's costs by hiring less guards. This affected John's staff as security guards were not always present during shift change. John spoke to Butthole, who promptly responded with, "If your workers have to wait then so be it, we will get there when we get there. Do I tell you how to manage your staff? No? Then bugger off and leave me run mine." John was just venting as he was annoyed at this situation. Kevin broke out the biggest smile and said, "If you play your cards right, you can really F Butthole over." Kevin explained how Security Co is expected to reimburse org any costs resulting from negligence or oversight on Security Co's behalf, something Butthole is probably not aware of. At this point Aaron started laughing and said if employees can't leave because it's too unsafe then they are entitled to get paid until they can leave, including overtime. This overtime would be considered a reimbursement cost according to the contract. You could see the light bulb go off in John's head as an evil smile creeped on his face and he said, "We will wait for security like Butthole said." The next part John told me via phone calls over the coming months. John sent Butthole an email informing him that the lack of security is causing a finical concern for John's department as workers get overtime until security guards arrive. Butthole replied with, "I'll keep it in mind," confirming receipt of the email. For the next month John emailed Butthole daily with shift changes times and told his employees to log when security arrived as that's when they clock off. Security would always arrive 1-3 hours late, one night not even showing. This caused a massive amount of overtime for workers, and due to industrial relations laws, casual workers were rostered on to cover shifts that assigned workers were no longer allowed to work. Minimum 16 hours break between shifts in this field. All in all, payroll in John's department was up by $50K in 1 month. John was called into the CEO's office for this budget blowout along with Aaron, account rep. CEO John, explain why this month's payroll is over by $50K. John: because employees had to stay back and wait for security. They can't leave work until security arrive, and since Butthole arrived, they are always late or not showing up. CEO: what, and the workers cannot walk themselves to the car? Aaron: sir, this site requires security due to the location and risk of assault. And regarding the pay, employees are entitled to be paid if they are unable to leave the site. CEO: well, what can we do about this? We can't keep this up. John: is security co-responsible for reimbursements for any costs resulting from negligence or oversight? Aaron: I believe so, CEO. You planned this, didn't you, John? John said nothing as he handed CEO a folder with every email he sent to Butthole. In the end, security co-repaid the $50K. Butthole lost his bonus and more security guards were hired. Thank you. Next. This is not mine, but my late dad's. He loved telling this story. I've tried typing this story a few times here in the last few months, but couldn't get through it. I'm a daddy's girl and miss him terribly. He was a brilliant and wickedly clever sob, and I hope you all enjoy. TLDR at bottom. Backstory. Gary was an electrical engineer currently working for company AW. A damn good one. He was also an extremely dedicated and hard-working employee. He was hired onto an oil and gas company out of college and worked for the same company all his career. He was still employed there when he passed away 7 months ago. The oil and gas industry has ups and downs, and big ones. For the major oil field crash in the US back in the 80s, Gary was never one of the employees who was laid off, though 90% of the workforce was. Even when he became sick in the months before his death, he was still getting calls at home and in the hospital from around the world from various company locations asking for his help and expertise. Gary's company was bought out several times in the numerous decades he worked there. As could be expected, every time the company had new ownership, many of the benefits and company policies changed. This particular MC concerns vacation and PTO benefits. Gary usually worked at his local company facility, although he did travel as needed. About 20 years ago, his company, AW, was once again bought out. This time by an extremely large energy company, DC. The new company started a project almost immediately, and they needed a representative from the AW to help create a customized computer system to integrate AW more seamlessly into DC. Gary was chosen for this project. It required him to work on the project team at corporate, which was in a different state and 4 hours away every Thursday and Friday. This 15-month project was critical, and at the request of the execs with DC, Gary postponed some travel plans he had for the year and moved them to the following year to accommodate the project schedule. Being a hard worker and genuinely good guy, Gary drove to corporate extremely early every Thursday, put in a full 10 hours of work with the team, stayed in a company apartment, worked another 10 hours or more on Friday, and would get back home extremely late Friday night after the 4-hour drive. He did not consider the driving as part of his work time, and was willing to be a team player. He did have a company car and fuel card and was also a salary employee in upper management by this point. A few months into the project, DC decided to change the vacation policies for all AW employees. They did not allow any vacation to roll over, and therefore any vacation accrued had to be used or it would be forfeited. Gary had some major worldwide travel plans with his wife scheduled over the next year, some of which he postponed as a favor to DC to help with the project. This had all been pre-approved and signed off by his boss. The change in vacation policy would require him to cancel 2 of the 3 vacations that he had planned, because the new vacation accrual policy meant that he would not have enough vacation time to take them. He currently received 6 weeks of paid vacation a year, and rollover for 2 years was allowed with AW. Gary contacted his boss. His boss contacted HR and asked for an exception. Denied. Gary contacted the project team lead and explained the situation. The lead then contacted the cooperate HR and pleaded Gary's case and asked for an exception due to the circumstances. This was also denied. And here comes the MC. So Gary then planned out a schedule to use his vacation before the end of the year as dictated by the new DC policy. It was in June, and his weekly schedule for the rest of the year went like this. Monday, vacation. Tuesday, vacation. Wednesday, work at local facility. Thursday, drive 4 hours to corporate, arrive at noon. Work 30 minutes, take our lunch. Work 30 minutes, drive 4 hours home. Friday, vacation. Gary turned in the vacation requests. His boss, who was pissed that DC was already taking his most valuable employee 2 days a week and now screwing him out of his earned vacation, promptly approved. The following week, Gary started his new work schedule. The local facility immediately began to feel the strain. Jobs began to fall behind schedule without Gary there to support their end. In the first week alone, the local facility lost 3 jobs due to late delivery of services. The corporate project immediately came to a near halt with Gary only assisting 1 hour a week. By the second week, the bigwigs became extremely irritated. This was now costing the company some serious revenue. When Gary returned to work on Wednesday of week 2, his boss had a huge grin on his face and told Gary that they are scheduled for a conference call with the executives immediately. On the call, Gary and his boss were both questioned concerning Gary's sparse work schedule. When explained that it was the only way that Gary would be able to use his vacation time that he was being forced to use or otherwise forfeit, the execs brought HR on the phone and grilled them. Needless to say, Gary was given the exception for his vacation time. He was allowed to keep his planned and scheduled vacations for the following year and roll over the time needed to do so. TLDR, new owner of company tried to screw employee out of vacation time. Employee decided to use all vacation as they dictated, leaving company up sh*t creek. Edit. Wow. Thanks for the platinum, gold, silver and other awards, kind strangers. Those are my first awards. Edit again. Thank you everyone for the kind words and condolences. It really gives me the feels that this many people are as amused with my dad's MC as I was. You Redditors really are the best. I'll share more of Gary's stories here another time. The man had quite a few. Hehe. Thank you. Next. I took a lot of AP classes in high school. How these classes usually worked at my school was that you'd take the AP test a few days before the end of the term and the last week everyone would chill and do class parties. No final exam if you take the AP test. So someone tweeted at my English teacher asking if we could have a class party and bring cake. He tweeted back that if you think we're having a party you're wrong. The next day he gets up in front of the class and says, "Some of you may have heard rumors online that we're going to be having a class party. This is incorrect, and if anyone is caught in class with any sort of party paraphernalia I will make sure they fail this semester." Here I'd like to stop and say I respect his decision to not have a class party. If he'd just said no class party I'd probably have gone along with it. But threatening to fail someone for the semester over some cake was ridiculous enough that 16-year-old me couldn't resist messing with him a little bit. I had his class first period. So that night I baked and iced a cake, bought some plastic plates and forks, and tweeted out an invitation to come to a party outside the English classroom before school. For 15 minutes I passed out cake to anyone who wanted some and we chilled outside his classroom and had a good time. Just before the final bell I threw away the remaining party paraphernalia and went to class. That teacher wound up not coming back the next year, so that was the last time I ever saw him. I passed the class. Thank you. Next. This is pretty tame compared to a lot of the stuff here, but I find it amusing. Also on mobile, so sorry for formatting. Backstory, ever since I could I've had a beard that I love. It's not big or bushy, and I trim it and style it so that it's always clean and pretty short. I've got a kinda chubby face so the angles make my chin and jaw look amazing. I'm pretty good about maintaining it, but between work and school the last week I haven't had much of a chance to get out my clippers. So I'm cuddling with my wife last night and she starts pushing me away and complaining that I should just get rid of it because it keeps stabbing her. She called me Splinterbird, which, for my D&D friends I'm totally stealing as a name for a Warforged pirate. She likes it normally but for some reason just demanded it be gone this time. So then she drops this line, "Just go shave everything except your hair and eyebrows." Poor choice of words. I'm sure you all know where this is heading. So first I shaved my face. It's been a while since I've seen my chin and I look like an alien. Whatever, it'll come back. Next I flip on the shower and grab my razor and a whole extra case of blades. I'm a hairy dude, so this could take a while. About 45 minutes in I hear the shower curtain open and my wife screams, "What are you doing?" By this point I'm halfway done with my second thigh. I told her I was doing what she asked. The look on her face was so much better than I expected. She told me not to do any more, so I finished up the leg and got out. Now she's mad because apparently my legs are softer than hers. Still not sure how to take that, but her look of shock was awesome. Edit, Mr. Letter.